amendment language. And slightly edited, I think, since we last saw it. Before we do that, while it's still fresh in our minds and having had 10 minutes to reflect, any thoughts on any concerns, reactions, beyond what we've already heard from the hemp language? Was that just one of the sections? I know there are 4 hemp sections, but it was just one really that was.
Yeah, it adds a couple but it only ends the plot.
I just had one clarifying thing. So if we create sort of a craft hemp processor category, that would extend to hemp craft processors out of state too, who somehow do business here?
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, it has to be.
I mean, I think that
to them just because of the.
I think that that's the safest way to do it. Is to define what a craft processor is. Usually, this bill doesn't define, but sometimes it's number of employees, sometimes it's amount of gross annual income. Sometimes it's where you cook it, right? Just in your home kitchen or something, and like with the cottage foods. And so this bill doesn't kind of do that. I think the safest way to define a craft processor would be to use those kinds of terms, and that kind of framework, because it makes people eligible nationwide potentially if they want to sell here.
But any kind of exemptions or benefits that we extend to Vermont, that category of Vermont in general, you have to extend that out of the state.
Yeah, for the most part, and with this piece in particular, it's so interesting, right? Because work is a fundamental right, but you don't have the fundamental right to commit a crime, and cannabis is a crime, a federal crime anyway. And so, but with respect to hemp and hemp processors and things of that sort, I do think that, tailoring the rules so it is lawful in interstate commerce, and 2, making those rules generally applicable is the safest way to avoid a constitutional challenge.
Unofficially, we'll do, an official vote when we're all done, but just sort of straw poll. Any concerns about this language at this point? You'll still get to change your mind. If you do think you're going to change your mind on anything, just let me know. Can try and deal with things as they come up, but okay, good. So let's take a look then at the amendment. It looks like it's draft 2.1 for the CAFO permit working group.
All right, and so Mike worked on this, so I believe he went over the details with you. I could just kind of skim through the amendment.
He did, yeah.
And but basically, this establishes a CAFO working group to provide advice and recommendations on the implementation of and transition to the CAFO permit required under Section 1353 of this Title 10. It sets up membership. 5 livestock farmers in good standing, appointed by the Speaker of the House as follows. And then so representative of the Champlain Valley Farmer Coalition, the Franklin County Farmer Coalition, Connecticut River Valley, and the Vermont Dairy Producers Alliance, and a representative of farmers from the Northeast Kingdom. The agricultural and technical, 3 agricultural technical service providers appointed by the governor are, so in addition to those 5 livestock farmers, we're 4 people here. 3 representatives from the environmental advocate community appointed by the Committee on Committees. And number 4, the executive director or designee from the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts. Okay.
I know there was a comment made this morning from the floor about appointing about speaker and the committee on committees and the governor making appointments. I don't know if anybody thought that. Yeah, maybe you weren't here. But it came up. Yeah, it's been made. Point has been made before, and I think that so it's a valid point. I think that in practice, the speaker, at least in the case of the House, the speaker typically will defer to, ask the, whoever it is here, the Farmer Coalition and, yeah, and, or the Dairy Producers Alliance to recommend somebody and then she'll appoint them. And, ultimately that still gives the legislative branch, the executive branch, some control over who's appointed, and arguably that's the right way to do it. But in any case, in case anyone was thinking about that comment this morning, I'm thinking about it, and I'm just throwing that out there. Okay, John.
And I would just agree with what you're saying. They don't make these decisions in a vacuum, and maintaining legislative control, I think it's a good idea. So I can't say that I really agreed with his comments.
All right.
So there's this assistant subsection. So the Agency of Natural Resources and the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets shall participate in the working group on advisory and administrative capacity, but shall not have appointed members on the working group and shall not be required to submit reports. The working group gets administrative, technical, and legal assistance from the Agency of Natural Resources. So no membership, but some assistance there. Meetings, the Secretary of Natural Resources will call the first meeting of the working group to occur on or before November 1st. And the working group shall select co-chairs for its members. One of the co-chairs shall respect livestock farmers and one co-chair shall represent the environmental advocate community. Majority is a quorum. The working group shall meet at least quarterly or more frequently at the request of co-chairs or at the request of the Secretary of Natural Resources. And the meeting shall be open to the public in accordance with our public meeting laws, notwithstanding 1 VSA 313. The working group may go into executive session in order to discuss a circumstance or an event regarding a specific farm and or regarding a specific permit violation on a specific farm. And then they issue a report, shall report to the House Committee on Agriculture and on the Environment and the Setting Committee of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And the report may take the form of testimony to committees from members of the working group. And there's, so there's that piece. And then as using the section, good standing means a farmer subject to the requirement of this subchapter or the requirements of 6 VSA chapter 215. Does not have active enforcement violations, that has reached a final order with the Secretary of Natural Resources or the Agency of Agriculture, and is in compliance with the terms of any current grant agreement or contract, Agencies of Natural Resources or Food Markets. And then the section concentrated animal feeding operations, training on inspection. So on or before December 1st, the Secretary of Natural Resources shall contract with a third-party consultant to assist the Secretary in development of standards and procedure to be used by the Agency of Natural Resources and the Agency of Agriculture when inspecting concentrated animal feeding operations. Provide training to the Agency of Natural Resources and the Agency of Agriculture on implementation, and inspection of CAFOs. Farmers that qualify for a CAFO permit may voluntarily attend training sessions. And when the Secretary of Natural Resources and Secretary of Agriculture, Food and Markets commence inspections of CAFOs under Title 10.
Yeah.
This is section, B, line 5B is about the training and, the information, of the inspection. And for the farmers to do it, they have to qualify for a CAFO permit. Perhaps we want to change that to any farmer that's under inspection. So they can, if they so desire, they can get better versed on how to police themselves.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chair Parker, the Champlain Committee. You want to make it to all sizes or just?
Anyone
under CAFO inspection?
Yeah, anyone that's under inspections currently, you know, I mean, you know, if they want to go and follow along and watch the process and learn. You know, and large farms are inspected currently, large farms are inspected every year, and most large farmers, if they're, you know, not out there themselves, they have one of their people out there following along. But you take like a small farm or medium farms are done once every 3 years and small farms every 5 or 7. It might be beneficial for them if they have the aptitude and want to do this to go along and watch and learn so they understand the process better and may go home and say, I gotta fix some things. And that's what we want is things to be fixed.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. It's, that was the intention we talked about all along, is have letting people get ahead of it. We just don't want, I wouldn't think would want 20 people. A small crowd following around their inspections. Remember some of the languages, AFM and A&R could each have a person, they only have one trainee, so you're keeping the numbers down.
Yeah, but that's under inspection. I'm talking about for the training. For the training, not the inspection. I don't want anyone else at my farm that's being inspected either, you know, but, yeah, but at training, you know.
That makes sense to me as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All set.
And if I may get clarification, so what would the recommendation be here?
That, and farmers, strike out that qualify for a CAFO permit. Farmers may voluntarily attend training sessions.
Okay.
The rest of the group is amendable to that.
Any objections? Right?
The Secretary of Natural Resources and Secretary of Agriculture commence inspections of CAFOs under Title 10, Chapter 47, Subchapter 3A. The third-party consultant shall accompany the Agency of Natural Resources inspectors on 10 inspections to ensure compliance with the subsection standards developed under subdivision 1 of this section. In addition to other funds appropriated to the Agency of Natural Resources for the fiscal year of 2027, the sum of $300,000 is appropriated to the agency from the general fund in the fiscal year 2027 for the purpose of contracting with the consultant to provide services required under the subsection A. Shall take effect on July 1st.
Right, Representative Nelson.
Okay, under page 9, page 4, line 9. That number 2, the third party consultant shall accompany 10 inspections. That's all great. I thought we were talking about having that just for 2 years to set the baseline for inspection. So that seems so we had that language in there before someplace and it got lost.
The program overall, beginning is only for 2 years, correct?
Yeah, the program's supposed to run for 2 years with the consultant.
So 2 years is maybe referred to somewhere earlier.
That's what I'm looking for.
Trade, some form of trading.
Yes,
Looking over their shoulder.
yeah.
It's best to follow.
So what line is this again? Richard?
It's page 4, line 9, goes down.
Yep.
You know, it describes what the consultant or the auditor would do. Yeah, third party consultant. And it says 10 or more, you know, on 10 inspections to ensure compliance. Consistency is another word we were thinking of. And, but we talked about it only happening for 2 years, not for the life of the CAFO program. But they would continue their training. We just thought the first 2 years, you know, have consistency. You know how the thing goes. If I call up Jed and I go, ask him to get a tuna fish sandwich for me on white bread with extra mayo and provolone cheese, and the time he gets back around to David, he hands me a ham and cheese sandwich on rye and mustard. We're just looking for that consistency through the third party consultant. And I thought we talked about it for being just 2 years, and maybe that 2 years needs to be up at the beginning. Shall consult with a third party consultant for 2 years to colon.
And 10 inspections would be spread over 2 years, the thought.
Well, each year. For the first 2 years, 'cause the life of that consultant.
That sounds good.
So this might be a good, we're at the end, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had talked about possibly removing the appropriation
Yeah,
in light of the fact that the budget is already cleared back out of the Senate, and it would be a pretty Herculean task to try and
yeah,
now find $300,000 there. At the same time, if we aren't able to fund this position, then funding would need to come out of, as written, it would need to come right out of A&R's other appropriations, which are of course sizable. A&R has written to the committee and is not, making it clear that they don't have 300, they can't spare that. So this is something we'll have to reconcile. Among a few other concerns that they had.
okay, 2 thoughts on that. They've got the clean water fund, first of all. That's one thought. The second, and this idea on removing the funding, it was spawned by the group of stakeholders. Not just one side or the other.
Mhm.
So I won't throw my partner here under the bus. But the other thought that was had, it's gonna take them a while to build their program and start their training, and maybe the third party consultant could start for fiscal year 28. Am I correct in thinking that? If we,
You asking Jared?
yeah, so I'm asking.
Again, Jared Carpenter, Michigan Blue
Maybe.
That's a little, I understand, I've got a couple of layers here, Mr. Chair. I think we should remove the funding language just for the reasons that you said. They're in conference committee, and this is not in the House version or the Senate version, so it's sort of a non-starter as a new case. House appropriations could put in some contingency language like they do with a lot of things, contingent on funding, et cetera, et cetera. However, I disagree with A&R that they don't have the money. They could scrape together $100,000 at least to get them started, and then we can come back next year with the AA or another budget. Last year, they were given $850,000 in one-time money to set up this program, including the database, hiring the initial mediator to write the report. Patrick was a good mediator. He wasn't at $180,000 good, so I would have to assume they still have $100,000 kicking around. And I can't, of course, wouldn't begin to speak for A&R, but this is, they are concerned about building goodwill with the farmers going forward. Finding the money would be a good way, a good gesture of starting this process. I would not want to wait till 28. I think the inspections should be trained sooner. But it always takes them a little while to get things going, and it might not be until early next year. And then we'll be back into another budget cycle.
Yeah.
So that is, I'm sure they're throwing daggers at me right now. For the TV screen, yes. But that is, those are my thoughts, Mr. Chair, so just start the language, maybe House of Props puts in our usual boilerplate contingent upon funding, et cetera, and A&R figures it out.
Yeah, Good, other thoughts? Now, I think I want to make sure everybody reads the letter, which was sent over the weekend, and I'm sorry I didn't have Patricia post it until today, so read it because it addresses not only that question, but also the participation in the group question.
Right on our committee page.
It's on our committee page, yeah. Don't read it now, but just when you get a chance, know that it's there and take a look at it. So the makeup of this group, the people who were appointed at the very beginning, we were talking about the 5 who were appointed by the speaker, et cetera, et cetera. The agencies themselves are not represented on the group, is that correct? Okay, and they indicated they would like to be, or at least the A&R commissioners indicating that. I also will point out that the legislature last year, when we were passing Act 67, said, give us a report with recommendations, and it was due February 15th, probably. And we just got it. So again, it's hard to get things in, and everyone was working hard on that, I'm certain. But we just got it, and it has its own recommendations. So I'm not sure, we had asked the BEC to testify. They had suggested having a joint hearing with the Senate. The Senate committee is essentially not meeting anymore. So I think maybe we could invite them back if they would like to present. I think that's only fair. But we will have to resolve this question about who's going to be on this group and what to do about, paying for it. And happy to hear thoughts now, but otherwise we can think about it and back to it.
My, if I may,
Yes.
my biggest thought is, this may be the first time in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, that the 2 stakeholder groups are actually engaged in dialogue. And I think anything that we can do in this body to foster that and encourage the dialogue, because it's to make it's for the health of the environment, the health of our farms. It's to forge us working ahead together so that people get to know each other, realize that maybe the boogeyman isn't around the corner on both sides. And I think I realize, and hey, no one champions the agency of agriculture more than I do in this building. Sometimes we need to do things on our own, so we can have clear dialogue without worried about hurting feelings both ways. That goes both ways. As the Lake Champlain Committee representative in here will explain to you, we were at terrific standstill instead we started meeting on our own. And we really got a lot done in a short period of time. And if we'd have started that process way earlier, perhaps you'd have had your report by February 15th. But probably not. But anyway, we've come a long way in working together, and I want to keep fostering that. That's the politician in me.
So, Mr. Chair, just real quick about the agency's inclusion or not being included. We certainly want the agency's input, both of A&R and ANFM in the process, but the point of the stakeholder group going forward and meeting quarterly was to be able to continue discussing process of what's working and what's not working. And quite frankly, a lot of that might be in critique of one or both agencies, so it made sense for the agencies not to be sitting on a panel in critique of themselves. That they would be there and involved in discussion, their expertise and everything like that, but it would be the stakeholders would be having the conversations, just as Representative Nelson said, when we had the best dialogues when they were actually not in the room, the agencies. We're not saying that here, we're saying be in the room and participate, but just not officially.
Who do you feel that you represent and can speak on behalf of the constituencies that you
Yes.
represent? Okay, good to know. Thank you. The report itself is also on our page under reports. So if you find the reports tab, it's a 54-page report. There's probably some footnotes and appendices at the end. But there's an executive summary and a good cover letter, so I would encourage everybody to take a look at that too. Not the whole thing, at least read the first few pages at the beginning. Okay. Are there any other reactions or thoughts here at the moment on this? So Bradley, I think a couple of things that we flagged, and I think at the very least, we're going to want to cut out section B at the end there, subsection B, the appropriation. Let us then, I don't know if this is lastly, but let's look at the fluorinated container amendment.
So this is an amendment. It is draft 2.1. It's an amendment that would add pesticide containers to a prohibition on fluorinated containers or containers with potentially added fluorine. So this is an amendment to a bill that was passed last year, but beginning on January 1st, 2032, manufacturer shall not manufacture, sell, offer for sale, distribute for sale, or distribute for use in the state a fluorine-treated container for any consumer product or pesticides, that's what we're adding, in a fluorine-treated container. For the purpose of this section, pesticide is the same meaning as economic poison. The Attorney General may, by rule, allow the sale, offer for sale, distribution for sale, or distribution for use in the state of a pesticide in a fluorine-treated container prohibited under subsection C of the section upon a determination that the PFAS in the container is currently unavoidable use. As used in this subsection, currently unavoidable use means that the use of PFAS is essential for health, safety, or the functioning of society and for which an alternative is not reasonably available. So this does permit the Attorney General to make rules about what might be permitted after this ban goes into effect.
So this language in D, I guess, is not new. Bradley, you added that at my direction.
Yes.
Over the weekend, thank you. And it was pointed out to me after we had looked at the rest of the language, I think last week, that when the House passed this bill, so this is amending the 238.
This is amending Title 9, 2494G.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But last year we passed H238, which put this in place. And the House, so it brought to my attention that when the House passed the bill, it included language similar to what's in D there. So this idea of unavoidable use. When it went to the Senate struck that language and maybe did so at the request of ANR. I'm not sure, maybe, So, and it ended up not being in the bill that passed. So that language is not currently in for the consumer product containers. But since there was a concern raised and legitimate concern raised about the potential for there not being pesticide available if we pass this bill, something that was a critical tool, this would be a way of dealing with that. So I had Bradley put that in. I don't think we had testimony. Did we have testimony from on this last week? I don't think we did.
Discussion.
Go ahead, Bill. Yeah.
So, Builders for the Associated Institutes of Vermont, I did discuss with the committee the importance of having unavoidable use
You
exemption.
did. Okay.
But that was in the context of all containers, not just pesticide containers. So I think we might have some concerns about it being just for pesticide.
Okay.
The original house language was for all.
Just for all. Okay. Okay, good. But you did, I could remember if you
Yeah,
spoke to it at all. Okay.
We didn't offer language per se.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I told you I was gonna look into my containers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Try to figure out if they're fluorinated or not, and they're HDPE containers. You do a quick AI search, and not all HDPE containers are fluorinated. If they're food grade, they're not fluorinated. And of course, the great thing about those 250-gallon cage totes is they're highly reusable, recyclable. They're pressure tested. And a lot of them start out food grade. And after they go food grade, then they go to something else grade, and they go to the economic poisons grade, which would be their final stop, because they're not gonna go back to hauling molasses after that. And so that, they may go from food to hauling cleaners like acids or soaps that Cabot would use, or Ben and Jerry's. And then they may move into the line of hauling pesticides and herbicides. So it's hard to know which ones are and which ones aren't. I can tell you one thing about those HDPE tote containers. They hold 100 of the 2.5 gallon that are by law triple rinsed and punctured and sent to the landfill. These are used and used and used and used and recycled. And in that same piece, when I was looking things up, climbing over the top of my truck this weekend, they, highly recyclable materials. So, but I do appreciate this language if it's unavoidable. They can be used.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a question about the definition. It says, or the function of society. What would that encapsulate?
Potentially that might encapsulate, like a typical use of not a typical use of a pesticide, but the need of a pesticide for health and safety reasons, which I guess the word health and safety is already there. This is language that was in the previous bill. So functioning of society as it relates to a pesticide container itself, might not have a specific use other than a health that wouldn't also be a health and safety issue. And so
Could it be if it's still, obviously a legal pesticide that we would normally be able to use, but it's only available in a fluorinated container and there's no other container. Would that be an unavoidable use?
So it needs to be, right. The container,
Food production and.
right. The use of the pesticide has to be essential for health, safety, functioning society, and for which there's not a reasonable alternative. So the committee might want to consider health, safety, or maybe a particular purpose for that's more tailored to agriculture. 'Cause functioning society, I mean, it's not a term that's defined. This whole this whole section deals with any consumer product. And so you might be able to kind of imagine a consumer product that has, you know, an essential, a more essential everyday use that needs to have fluorine in it. But perhaps this language doesn't make as much sense with related to agriculture uses and pesticides. The committee might want to consider language to tailor it toward agriculture.
I was maybe off on the wrong direction here, but thinking that society can't function unless people are able to eat. And if you said, you know, we can't grow food without this pesticide and it's only available in this container, that might qualify.
Naturally, yeah.
Richard, are you allowed, if you buy the cage tote, to pour it into other containers that are smaller, maybe easily to handle? It has to go directly onto
Has to
the.
go directly, it can only go into a container that has the same FIPRA approved label on it. And then it might.
So you could consolidate
Take
those.
Section 8, you know, to do that. It's, they, very strict rules. No, I can't pour it into a yellow jug that had pipeline acid in it. It, you know, and rinsed out really clean so you don't have any gases.
Yeah.
You know, I cannot collect glyphosate in that and bring it down and give it to my buddy John. You know, it's gotta stay in its tote, and then it goes from there. Measured into my sprayer, and then it's used. Now I can put it into a hand sprayer and hand apply, but it's gotta go from there to whatever vehicle is gonna
But those are all.
deliver it, yes.
Yeah.
Richard, you have a photograph of a cage toe for some of us.
Yeah, yells a sapid one that I used to hold Acuron.
Google one right now. You can
It's a simple question.
I can find it.
You've seen them a million times, yeah.
I think it would be helpful.
There we go.
It's a lot of pesticides.
Yeah, right there.
Nice.
I'd like for that.
I got a whole bunch of these used from Bartle Gym.
What were they storing?
Now with corn. Corn alcohol.
Yeah.
You use it for apples or?
They, yeah, for soy cider.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And they have a big lid on top, which also has a center thing that'll screw out of it. And then they have a petcock down on the bottom. That's a pretty positive opening close.
But they're probably not all fluorinated either, are they?
They're not all fluorinated. That's what I've been looking into. Matter of fact, a company, if you allow me, Chair.
Yep.
Let me find it in here again.
While Richard is searching there, I want to just get a general temperature check on how people are feeling about this concept.
That's your temperature.
Yeah.
Doing two things at once. You go ahead and finish your search and then you can.
Okay, here we go. Enhanced Technologies is a leading producer of fluorinated containers. This is from Steve Glenell, Commissioner, Pesticide Division. EPA ordered the company to change its practices so that long change free and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, and term LCP FACs were not created in the process. Okay, so EPA ordered them to stop. Enhanced sued EPA and ultimately won that case. But it's suing EPA again to keep their data confidential. And I can forward this to the committee. Background on in-case barrier packages and PFA packs, and it's too many pages, too small to read on my phone, but let me, forward this to.
Well, okay, so why don't we, anybody have any questions about the language? Yeah, Josh?
Or just to clarify, so the General Assembly passed a ban on sort of consumer retail fluorinated packaging. And this would be added to that in statute?
Yeah, so at the top of the page, any consumer product in a fluorine treated container, so it's adding or pesticide.
Okay.
So doesn't that already include it if it's any consumer product or pesticide isn't considered a consumer product?
In some cases, it might be a consumer product, but in other cases, not. So if it's going, if it's something that you would go to Auchan and buy, that would be a consumer product, but if it's going to somebody who's been applying the pesticide onto agriculture, then probably not. Richard.
Speaking to, my handler, and to Representative Bartholomew, always saying, why don't they do it in steel? You can get it in steel. It requires a stainless steel silo, which has to be enclosed just like fuel would be for spill guard. And then it's got to be pumped out to farmers in stainless steel containers. And the initial cost for setup would be dear. And then, how many different herbicides do you attempt to handle? I typically handle 3, sometimes 4. I prefer to keep it simple, stupid philosophy, and I use 2 regularly and then 1 if I need a rescue treatment. And only the 1 for rescue is in 2.5 gallon containers. And last year I used 8. I really try to get it right the first time.
So, Chair, on the unavoidable use thing. Would it make sense to look at something tailored to this specific context, or are we looking at potentially having broadened to all categories of the bill that was
Right.
passed last year?
Yeah, so that, I mean, I think either way it could be a direction that we go. And if we broaden it, then maybe this definition still works. If we didn't broaden it, then we could look at other language that seemed more appropriate to the context.
We brought,
Yeah, go ahead.
if we broaden it, environment's gonna wanna see it. It's spent a lot of time in that committee on this.
And it passed out of this committee, the House Committee. It was Senate that stripped it out. Yeah, last year.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's in the House version that's the past had this in it. Okay, but you're right. I mean, they would probably be interested in weighing in. So again,
and it's beyond the purview of this committee. All those other products.
yeah, that's true.
Another question for you, Chair. if we were to pass this out as written with that caveat at the end, which makes it more amendable to my world.
Hmm.
Where does it go downstairs besides Senate Ag? Does it only go to Senate Ag or does that get through? Will it go to House Environment here to be looked at? Is it got any title? It says Title VI, Title VI.
It's not Title VI, right?
So line.
Yeah,
Title
so
IX.
it might go where? I don't know.
What's Title IX?
Yeah, I'm not
So
familiar.
Environment,
with your
House
question.
Environment, worked on it, but I don't know in the Senate side who worked on it
I don't know either.
last year. Historically, Human Services did work on PFAS and, in their committee.
It's Title IX Health.
Yeah, maybe.
Title IX consumer products.
Consumer products, okay. So I think the answer is it would probably be, yep, have to go to other committees. So I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but if anybody has a thought that you haven't shared yet, or if you're just not sure and you want to dig into it more, that'd be good to know.
Could we? I know we're getting towards the end of session. Could we ask maybe, either, the toxicologist Pam Breyer to weigh in on this or, Steve Gunnell over at the Agency of Ag, just to give us their perspective?
Yeah.
So y'all can-
Do that.
Thank you.
On which part, the unavoidable use or?
Or just the containers themselves and, oh, there, we ain't gonna worry about going home plant corn today.
If we do nothing, as a reminder, it's where a ban is supposed to go in place on pesticide containers or not.
No, so right
I didn't
now.
remember if there was a deadline.
Yeah, there is, if we do nothing and don't move this amendment, as of now, when 2032 rolls along, then consumer products would not be allowed to be sold in fluorinated packaging.
Including sort of over-the-counter pesticides, like
Yeah, I.
Deed or
yeah,
off or
I think
whatever.
the way consumer products is defined, it's anything sold to a consumer in a retail environment.
and pesticides is more like our world of you need to be a private or certified applicator.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess so. It's a way to think about it, yeah.
Focus on something different.
Yeah.
It's like ceramic cup that's holding up the
Yes,
window. If there is some violent weather shifts, I'd rather see an inverted paper cup or something on.
so it doesn't fall to the
Non-lethal.
Yeah.
Dropping.
safety
I think
board.
last year we had that all year long in the hot weather.
I know, but
We survived.
Jed,
no, something went out, but there wasn't a pedestrian out
That's not a
there.
walking space. Is that a walking space?
that is Jerry Epstein walking.
Oh, it is? Oh, I guess I haven't looked up that window.
I got some at home. I'm just.
Widowmakers.
Powers to be don't appreciate us having that.
Yeah,
So,
I'll bring wood block tomorrow.
That KC2 thing, if you had it, if it was gonna fall, it'd fall into our rooms. That's non-lethal.
that, yeah, we could employ that for the.
I'm sorry, I've just been looking at that.
I had, I looked at it and had the same thought, but I didn't voice the thought, so thank you for speaking.
I think it is
Jen's
germane.
doing his job.
I'm a safety
Sure.
It is germane in terms of public safety.
You know.
Thank
I
you,
want
James.
to-
Bradley,
Title IX.
I think we can.
Title IX
If
had
we
to
can
do
take
with-
that down, I do want to though ask, and I don't know whether you have anything that you can put up to show us here, but I think it would be useful to reflect again on the municipal ag section of, it's not in this bill, but in it was
941.
past 941, yeah. To compare, particularly the poultry sections, which I think is where we're going to have to,
Telling you 100 pounds works and just equivalent.
We're gonna have to make some
Equivalent to
decisions.
mature bird.
Thank you, Jared.
Hey, have a good day, Jared.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. President.
Don't tell anyone they're getting along, or it's gonna ruin my reputation.
It's okay, it's, people aren't watching.
He's had it on the internet, don't worry, that's the whole.
Myro Nelson.
Then Northeast Camping Truck Unlimited, got a dam removed.
Okay. So I have some notes on this. I wasn't prepared to have it finished for today, but got some notes on this, so I can just share it from my screen. Okay, so this section compares the H941 as passed by the House on the left side and the Senate proposal of amendment on the right side. This is still in the Senate and subject to change on amendments.
we pull this up on our own screens, or maybe you could just make it a little bit bigger.
Okay.
We have this on.
No, I haven't shared this with yet. And okay, so in the House version that the House passed is on the left side. And so both bills purport to amend 4413. And the House bill amends 4412, which does not prohibit municipal bylaw. It just allows some regulation by bylaw. So no bylaw shall have the effect of prohibiting the raising, feeding, or management of poultry, excluding roosters, for personal use, donation, or sale, as used in the section. Poultry has the same meaning as 6 VSA 1459, number 4. And so, so municipalities can regulate poultry. They just can't prohibit the raising, feeding, or management of poultry in their municipalities. The House version has this provision about poultry in their section that amends 4413. 4413 prohibits municipal regulation of, as we're most familiar, farming that is subject to the required agricultural practices rule. This would also prohibit municipal regulation of poultry. Where is it? I think I scrolled past it. Here we go. Prohibit municipal regulation of the raising, feeding, or management of a small, which is not defined, backyard poultry flock, excluding roosters. And so not defining the word small was intentional from the Senate Agricultural Committee to give municipalities some leeway and to determine what works and to, allow people to kind of, have that conversation elsewhere. But this would prohibit municipal regulation of raising, feeding, or managing of small backyard poultry flock, excluding roosters. So there are a lot of ordinances on the books right now that purport to regulate chickens, backyard chickens. Some places have 4, some places have 6, some places have 10. You can have up to that number of chickens. And those ordinances are enforceable so long as that farming activity is not subject to the RAPs. And since Taft Street, those ordinances are enforceable, period. And but under both of these bills, those ordinances would be restricted in some way. So under the House bill, I think those ordinances would probably be fine because the House bill permits municipal regulation of raising chickens so long as the municipality does not prohibit. And I believe there may be a municipality that prohibits chickens. I haven't actually looked at the actual ordinance. I just heard rumors, so I won't repeat what municipality it is. But there might be a municipality out there that does prohibit chickens. And so both versions of the bill would stop that, would override that ordinance. But the House bill permits those ordinances to kind of go into effect as long as they don't prohibit the raising back and feeding of management of chickens. And the Senate bill would essentially override those ordinances to the extent that they prohibit you from having a small backyard poultry flock. So what is small? Is it 4 chickens, 6 chickens, 10 chickens? That's left to municipalities and the courts to determine.
Representative.
Riley, is there a spot in this Senate's amendments to our language that talks about downtown district or where is that?
Yeah, so the Senate bill gives municipalities authority to regulate swine waste in downtowns or village centers. And then it refers to a definition of village centers or downtowns by reference. So it doesn't actually spell out the definition, it just refers to those by reference. And do I have it? Oh, I bet you any money I left my definitions in a different folder. I did. And let me see if I have them.
The reason why I ask is that seems like a relatively easy one to include in to say that they could regulate a small poultry block in a downtown area, but not anywhere else.
And so I will
It's
pull,
already in there anyway.
so I'll pull up the statute just so we can see it on the screen. Just give me a second to search. And I could read you the definition, but it's kind of long, so. So this is 24 VSA 2791. So downtown is, the rub of this is like if it looks like a downtown, it's a downtown, but it has to be designated as a downtown. And that is a process a municipality goes through to designate a downtown and a village center. And so if it is so designated, you get that protection to our municipalities would get that ability to regulate swine waste with a performance standard. We talked about performance standards a little bit last time I was in here, but they can set bylaws to establish acceptable levels of swine waste in downtown and village centers. So the downtown means a traditional central business district of a community that has served as the focus of socioeconomic interaction in the community, characterized by a cohesive core of commercial and mixed-use buildings, some of which may contain mixed-use spaces, often interspersed with civic, religious, residential, and industrial buildings and public spaces, typically arranged along a main street and intersecting side streets that are within walking distance for residents who live within and surrounding the core, and that are served by public infrastructure such as sidewalks and public transit. Downtowns are larger in scale than village centers and are characterized by a development pattern that is consistent with smart growth principles. Village center is here, very similar. It's a core of a traditional settlement, typically comprised of a cohesive mix of residential, civic, religious, commercial, and mixed-use buildings arranged along a main street and intersecting streets that are within walking distance for residents who live within surrounding the core. Industrial uses may be found within or immediately adjacent to these centers. Village centers are typically smaller in scale than downtowns and are characterized by a development pattern that is consistent with smart growth principles.
So these are existing definitions for the designated, are these the designated?
That would be the definitions that we would use to get designated.
Yeah.
And so the bill, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and reshare. Switch. There we go. So the bill says.
Train's leaving.
The train's leaving.
Downtown means an area designated pursuant to this chapter. So we see the term designated here, which is highlighted. And so that's part of the definition. And so there's a process that municipalities have to go to designate their downtown or village centers, and then they get their designations.
So that could be potentially one option, then is that include the small poultry flock. In the, well, not include the, there's already verbiage about downtowns regarding swine waste. You could also maybe use that to say that a small poultry flock can be regulated in a designated downtown. But
Potentially, but not elsewhere.
Not-
So, yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
if that's gonna be a holdup.
John,
On the, they can restrict but not prohibit side of things, can a municipality say, you know, I understand some towns are, I don't know if it's, you have to register your chickens and pay a certain amount for each one. Are there points there where it becomes prohibitive, so they're actually prohibiting chickens, or could they say, well, it's $100 a chicken, so
Yeah.
essentially you can do the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, I think a person could argue, you know, a $15 per chicken fee is probably not prohibitive. You know, I think it's similar to like registering a dog or something of the sort, right? And that's something that municipalities have done and have done successfully.
You're making a dozen eggs get real expensive.
Yeah. And so $100, is that pushing it? $1,000, $10,000, you know, and so obviously if you go to $10,000, that's obvious, right? And so these are the kind of things that might have to be worked out in a zoning process, like with the development review board and kind of appeals, or a lawsuit potentially, where someone says, look, $100 fee is not fair. And that is prohibiting me from having chickens. And that could result in potential litigation.
the Senate language on the right there, the raising, feeding, or managing of a small backyard poultry flock. That the language that precedes it saying they can't regulate that.
Yeah, a municipality a bylaw under this chapter shall not regulate. So municipal bylaw shall not regulate.
So that would mean, you can't have setbacks requirements or anything like that. You could say, arguably, you can't have more than 20 chickens, because my definition is of small is fewer than 20. On the language that we passed, you could have setbacks. Right? We're saying you can't prohibit it, but that doesn't mean that they can't say you need to be, 15 feet away from your neighbor's property, for example.
Or have a coop, or have some kind of waste.
Put a number limit on it.
Or put a number limit on it. Yep.
So that gives them a lot of leeway. Town, yeah, Greg. Good.
Oh, great.
Chair, yeah, I mean, I think do you think it'd be possible when we get this back to have a line somewhere, more. I'm trying to know this is. Gone through this at all already, but. To somehow say that, that any fees. That are given, that they are, tailored, really considered based on the food value of the utilitarian side of whether it's poultry or I don't know, a town could assess a fee for having a garden, I guess, if they wanted to, or having, obviously cattle.
Yeah.
It'd be just nice to have a line in there that, cause just hearing, that some towns are actually prohibiting poultry. Others have high fees on poultry, relatively speaking. If we're looking at a right to grow food, then that really needs to have. It would be nice to have language in here that really addresses that, so that people aren't having, nobody's gonna go through litigation over a chicken.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just trying to create eggs.
Yeah.
You know, that's what this is for, those people who are just trying to feed themselves, and I don't want to see a $35 feed on 4 chickens like it, from what I've heard already exists.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, if there was a line that somehow could address all of it. And saying, you know, fees should be established in a manner that's consistent with the use and of the type of agriculture, whatever, you know, I don't know, we could word craft that obviously, but I'd love to see that.
So on the Senate version, they could not apply a fee. The towns that are currently assessing a fee would have to stop doing that.
Yeah, essentially, because a bylaw shall not regulate a small backyard poultry flock.
And they also couldn't, in either version, they couldn't charge a fee for growing plants for food. It's also,
So a fee is considered regulating.
Potentially, yeah. I think that is considered regulating. And let's see.
but in our version, I think
So
it's not, it is permissible.
cultivation, yeah. So fees would be permissible in the House version.
For poultry.
You know, and like you get when we're talking about animals too, we do get like local control under you know, municipalities ordinance authority. You know, local control is kind of like the crux of that is a lot of it is animal management. And so there might be some pushback on municipalities and things of that sort. So there might actually be some kind of, you know, hopefully maybe not litigation, but, you know, some kind of push and pull on working these terms out. But, you know, in both bills, the cultivation of or other use of land for growing plants for food is in the prohibition section. So municipalities are prohibited from regulating these activities by bylaw. There are some differences, right? But, you know, the core of that is prohibition and regulation by bylaw.
I guess I should ask that question. I just assumed that fees were not considered regulation, so that's.
Yeah. But I think if we were to move forward with something like our language on poultry, then we might want to consider your suggestion,
Okay.
you know, Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just feeling like if we still have time to make some amendments. I don't remember us talking about putting fees on having the registration of a chicken or something. And it seems a little silly, like, what, I mean, why do we need to register I mean, come on. I mean, I thought that we were trying to make it so that people were able to have access to doing the things that we think Vermonters should have access to do.
Yeah.
And raising chickens in their backyard, why should they have to pay extra money to do it? They should just be able to do it. I mean, it's not like with the dog registration, you want to know that the dog has a rabies shot. Okay, fine. So what's the justification? Like, oh, your chicken is balking in your backyard, so we're going to charge you $10 per chicken? I mean, if the chickens are harassing, quack, 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 quack. In English, not in every language. But in any case, yeah, I wonder, I mean, if there's 2 versions of the bill, I like the version that doesn't
have
make people have to pay to register having chickens in their backyard.
Or we could explicitly say, you can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would actually feel better about that because there are some towns that are kind of nasty about chickens and you know what?
You know, and then how are they gonna register them? You know, they don't like to wear a near tag.
They don't like collards either.
No, you have to, yeah, footman them. Then they're gonna have to go read the footman occasionally, yeah.
Gotta ban your bees too.
So other questions for Bradley here before we wrap up on chickens, poultry, swine?
But this is just livestock, right? We're not getting into
So I think,
to register your leaks.
no. But there are some differences in the vegetable section, the plant section. And we talked about them briefly. I think when we went over it, Michelle.
I just thought of something else. This is a little bit of a tangent, but not really. It's related to this bill. The Senate put our right to grow food into a study committee. I think that's not a good option. I'm wondering, could we put our right to grow food back in the miscellaneous bill and send it to the Ag Committee?
Do we, if this bill is written right, of course, that right to grow food gave renters the right to grow food. It wasn't so much from people that own their own place.
Right.
And you're right, how many people in Burlington actually, or Winooski, or a lot of people don't own anymore, they rent.
Yeah.
This struck me when you and I chatted before the session even started, that this is one of the most important things facing farmers in this session that we've got to get right. So I don't think we ought to be messing with it any more than we have to. I don't think we should add anything to it that's going to upset the Senate, because we've got to pass this thing. That's my opinion.
You don't think the Ag Committee would pass it if we sent it back in then?
If we tweak it, it'd be safer to go to conference committee, I think, but if we do little tweaks, but if we add anything to it, I like the saying the right to grow vegetables.
Yeah.
If we add that and they don't like it, I don't want to lose this bill. I shouldn't say that out loud because the Senate might be.
Yes, you should stop it now.
No, I don't want to lose the lead.
Yeah,
And then we're losing the right to grow vegetables because
We can't lose this.
so we can talk about that. You can have those conversations.
Page stuff.
So there are differences in the plant section. I don't think we'll go through those now. It's getting a little late. But tomorrow, even though we don't have the bill yet, so we're still technically working with S323. We've invited, just to move things along, rural Vermont to come in and speak on behalf of the farmers. They've been wanting to do that, so we will hear, their perspective. Bradley, question? Or?
No, I was gonna just ask has the committee made a decision on what to do with sections 1 through 3?
And so the plan is to delete them,
Okay,
and once that 941 is actually back,
okay.
then that will be ready.
And section unrelated, but section 4, is that,
We're going to delete that too.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the questions are still outstanding on the seed sections.
Okay.
And we have testimony tomorrow on that as well. And then whether and how to add these other two amendments that we looked at this afternoon.
Okay.
Where does hemp go? Because it was part of 323, right?
Hemp will be in here just within, so we're gonna do a strike all
Okay.
and then.
And so is it okay for me to kind of just incorporate that amendment, the GovOps amendment into the strike all? And I might make some other organization changes in there. Is that okay? Or,
Yes,
yeah, just for the sake of clarity.
we can do anything we want,
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
as John said, or, yeah. As Byron said, I go to Byron, he said, it's easy, those.
I can't even imagine sending that to a study. I thought we had that all worked out with,
they sent it to the Commerce Committee and I don't know why they didn't send it to the Ag Committee, but that's.
I think we're all set. Thank you, Bradley. And
Thank you.
we are back here